Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Milk Minutes. I'm your host, Ashley, Program Manager of the Center for Urban Breastfeeding, and I am so excited today because we are in the Healthy Start office and we have our lovely guest, Miss London, who is not only a CUB participant, but also a wonderful mother of two beautiful boys with whom she has breastfed both of them. So, in honor of Nutrition Awareness Month, we're going to dive in on some of her experiences with breastfeeding and share how she overcame many breastfeeding challenges. And it seems like she may even be able to give us a live demonstration.
Yeah, literally. I literally done it to
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, it's good. That's the beautiful thing about breastfeeding. It is on demand. So when baby is hungry, we lean on in and give him what he needs. Yeah, so Miss London, I'm happy that you're here today. And I know we have so much to talk about, but first, can you let our audience know who you are and a little bit about what breastfeeding means to you?
Hi, you guys. My name is London. I am a mom of two boys. And breastfeeding for me, was something that I actually learned through my twin sister
Really?
when she got pregnant with my niece, who's 5. And she was in her breastfeeding journey, and as she was breastfeeding and deep sea diving into it, she was also teaching us around her, and explaining, breastfeeding is really good. That's the most healthiest for babies. So when I had my oldest child, who's 2, I knew, I'm like, my sister did it and it wasn't no challenge. She didn't, if she had challenges, she never talked about her challenges. But I knew because of that, I was determined that I will breastfeed my kids. And with my oldest child, because I know eventually kids end up growing teeth, and doing my research and hearing how other moms, like, kids, it don't necessarily be they be purposely trying to bite you, but when, they're sucking and just, getting ones to, they don't realize
Yeah.
how hard or how much they're sucking and they bite not knowing. So during that time, I made that decision from 9 to 12 months, or when he started getting teeth, I was stopping. And
You're
it'll
right.
probably be the same with this one, 9 to 12 months, or when a tooth start growing in.
Well, you're absolutely right. Once they start to teeth, they do become a little more distracted at the breast and they may take a nibble at you. And I can understand why that would be one of the reasons why you would want to wean. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it is recommended that we at least exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. So
Yeah.
with your first son, you were able to achieve that. And that's, of course, that sounds like that's part of your plan with your youngest son here.
I think the only difference possibly and that I may do with him instead of what I did with my oldest child is, once that do happen and he is that third tooth, instead of completely taking him off of breastfeeding, just unlatch him. So
Yeah.
just kind of stop him from getting it from my actual breast and just you strictly just get it in a bottle.
Yeah, that's definitely an option that many
Yeah.
moms are utilizing is pumping. So you did mention that your sister was a huge influence in breastfeeding and she really helped normalize breastfeeding for you.
Yes.
So with that, a lot of mothers, they have the goal to breastfeed, but one of the biggest barriers is breastfeeding in public. How does that play in your breastfeeding journey? How do you feel about breastfeeding in public?
Hand pump, breastfeed, breastfeed, breastfeed. Don't let the world discourage you or tell you that, oh, this is nasty. This should be something only done in closed doors. No. Don't go to no bathroom. Now, if you're in a place to where, depending on the area, and they possibly do have like a fitting room, I would say, okay, go to the fitting room. That's more private. You don't have to worry about the nastiness, stalls, the
Yeah, yeah,
unsanitary.
absolutely not.
But if you're also somewhere to where you could, if there's a bench, most places in some stores, they might have a sit down area, like in the shoes, where you sit down, try to shoot it on. Sit down, breastfeed your child. If you need to, and you possibly have to take your jacket off, maybe you gotta do what you gotta do, but breastfeed and be okay and comfortable and content with breastfeeding. And don't let no one discourage you just because they're not comfortable with it. No, breastfeed, breastfeed, breastfeed. And I'll tell any mom, even if saying it, breastfeed and give them the encouragement. You're doing a great job and don't let nobody tell you otherwise.
Absolutely.
Breastfeed, breastfeed,
What you
breastfeed.
say? No matter where you are, just make sure you're comfortable and in a clean space, no bathrooms,
Yeah,
but you find somewhere where you can sit down comfortably and go ahead and feed your baby. So there's no shame at all.
Max was going to sleep.
I was going to say he's over here falling asleep right now while she's actually nursing, which is beautiful. And I appreciate those words too, because there is a lot of fear and uncertainty when it comes to breastfeeding in public, because a lot of moms are concerned on how they're going to be perceived or if they're going to get stares. But from what you're telling me is breastfeed.
Breastfeed that baby. Only thing
Yes.
you'll need, just the only thing you might need is a small cover up. And depending on what your shirt, even if you got a sweater on, yeah, you don't even gotta take the sweater off because I've done this too. Had the sweater on, lift my shirt up. Sorry, use
Yeah.
the sweater as the cover up to connect. Feed that baby.
Yes, yes. Now, I know that you're so passionate about breastfeeding. I'm curious, what are some differences between breastfeeding your first child and breastfeeding your second child?
So with my first child, he was strictly breastfed. Like the only time for is him actually getting bottle service, as I like to have called it. The only way he got bottle service is if he was with his dad while I was at work or with my grandma while I was at work. Outside of that, if I was present, I breastfed. I didn't go unless depending on what grandparents' house I was at, determine if, they made me go up into a room or somewhere else to nurse. Outside of that, wherever I was sitting, I'm gonna pull out my chest and I'm gonna breastfeed.
Right.
And it did not matter. The one time with my oldest child, he was probably like 6, 7 months. We was at the pool. And my mom and I pulled out my chest and breastfed. My mom looked at me like, "You're not gonna cover up?" And I looked at her. I said, "No, who gonna say something?" I'm feeding my child. We at the pool. I thought you might see worse. It's a pool. I'm
You said you
nursing.
might see worse.
Just nursing my baby.
You
So
see, baby, yes. And now you did mention in conversation previously before we hopped on, that with your oldest, there was some pushback when it came to your employer and breastfeeding, and that kind of impacted the length of breastfeeding with your son.
let's we can really deep sea dive in this, and this is one I'm gonna go probably a little bit more into detail about. And I'm in a union for it in my job, and one of my union reps, I was so determined on it to the point I made him, once realizing and knowing who he was, made him get so involved with it. And I vowed to myself that if I could be that spokesperson for that company itself and at that particular site, I want it to be, because I'm like, I don't wish for this to happen on anyone. So needless to say, deep sea diving as to what happened is once I came back from maternity leave and I had a set schedule, pretty much I was working 40 hours but only getting paid for 25. What I mean by that is that 3 hours out of the day, because I had a strict pump schedule, I pumped every 2 hours, hands down. And then the pump that I had at the time, it took like an hour for me to really pump, because sometimes if one breast pump was working and the other one wasn't, I would have to at least do 30 on each side. So it took about that hour to do so. Needless to say, they weren't paying me for that hour while doing it. And it was like, I'm doing this to be able to feed my child, to make sure my child has something to eat. And you guys are restricting me from it and me having to make a choice because I don't, I have to choose whether or not do I cut myself short, financially because I want to feed my child, or do I just continue to do what I'm doing and accept the consequences.
Right.
So throughout the summertime of that year, 2024, I had to make an executive decision as a mom to slowly wing, not knowing that I probably could have just still possibly pumped when I got home, rather than to completely wean him off. But in that moment, I'm like, this is what's best for me.
Yeah.
So I had to completely wean him off so that way I can receive my full funding of money to be able to take care of
Work
not
your
only
full
just
40
here
hours. Yeah.
and take care of him as well. And it was just like, that was a hardship. And from that moment, I went into classes to be able to, in the union company I work for, they call it shop stores, to where you're kind of above the employees, but you're like also in the same malfunctionality of a supervisor to where you can go into your manager's office as well, like with a supervisor, to be able to address them on situations and speak to them directly from other peers or anything like that and address and have questions. And what could they really say? They won't really have no pushback because of the status that you have. And it's like, what are you want to say? Because look at what is happening and what are ways or what are some reasonings as to how things can be fixed?
Right. So really, based off of your experiences and the requirement to punch out to breastfeed, which is illegal, you are allowed to pump while you're at work. You get breaks that are completely separate, and you're protected under the Pump Act. But unfortunately, at the time, your employer did not they weren't aware, they didn't cooperate. So you had to make the decision whether or not to continue to breastfeed and pump or to just wean your son so that you didn't lose hours at work and ultimately impact your livelihood. That's extremely challenging. And now, then you decided to become a representative within your union.
Yes.
Oh yeah, become a representative within your union so that other employees and mothers ultimately would have a voice.
Yeah.
So, based off of your experiences, it really drove you into the space of becoming an advocate and a voice for others.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are some things that you wish employers knew when it comes to breastfeeding mothers and work-life balance?
Me personally, and I'm slightly experiencing this now with possibly going back to work, keyword possible. We're gonna put the air quotes possibly going back to work. Them actually providing proper spaces for moms to be able to breastfeed. Like within, and I'm speaking on even in the now moment within the company right now, as I was telling them, I'm a breastfeeding mom, I'm gonna breastfeed. And I'm asking where's a space as to where I will be able to breastfeed, or not necessarily breastfeed, but where's a space to where I will be able to pump. And they literally told me within my company, because of the gym that is a part of our company, within the, I guess it would be considered a bathroom, it has like changing rooms and stuff like that, but it's also a bathroom. They have showers, and I'm like, this is the space y'all provided me to be able to pump. Like this is still a bathroom. It still has showering. Just why? Because they have other small little rooms that are considered dressing rooms. Yeah. That's not something I could see if it was the dressing rooms were completely separate from the bathroom and the showering. Then I would be like, okay. But they're completely and literally all just in the same area.
Right.
So it's like that still feel like a bathroom, and that still feels unsanitary because any and everybody can come in. It's not like it's just, oh, this is strictly for the females and this is strictly for the males. It's unisex. So it's like, granted, there's no privacy. Granted, I'm comfortable in my skin and don't care.
However,
but it's like being at work, like that's not something you want in a work for
your
like
coworkers to see. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, where's the privacy in that?
So this experience, it helped you spark your passion for advocacy.
Yes.
What motivates you to speak up for breastfeeding moms now?
To be honest, just based off of my experiences and what I went through, me feeling like somebody has to be a voice. And I feel like a lot of moms, even speaking on a comment you made earlier, with a lot of moms don't feel comfortable or think that they shouldn't breastfeed or pump in the public. So it's like, be okay with it and make people be okay with
Normalize it.
Normalize it. It is okay.
It's natural.
It's natural. Like, what do they think was happening before? How did they think babies were being fed before?
Absolutely.
From my acknowledgement and what I just got told, maybe like a week or so ago, and really finding out, formula became a part of a thing. Just, I forget. It was some way to be able to. I'm trying to find the words, but
are we talking about predatory marketing? And
that too, yes. Formula became of that to where it was
they were really,
and they pushed it to where formula. When in reality, from the very beginning, completely with everything, as you always hear, a lot of stuff that is being done into the today's world. There's a whole lot of natural remedies for or fruit.
Yeah.
or fruit and vegetables and the stuff we eat, we don't even realize it. They have so much naturalness that can help with a lot of issues that we have that we don't realize.
Right.
And they pushed formula, not realizing like breastfeeding is the best thing for a baby.
Absolutely.
Completely the best thing.
For mothers and babies.
Mother and babies. And one thing I've learned that I didn't know until actually doing research with this child in breastfeeding is that breast milk actually prevents, and me wondering why my son, with my oldest child, thinking like, oh, my baby has never gotten sick until he went into daycare, not realizing he was a breastfed baby. And when you, our bodies and breast milk have nutrients in it that prevents them and mom from like, we'll get sick, but we won't get the harsh sickness of the actual
Those
sickness
antibodies.
because our body naturally creates it for us and baby when we're nursing. You don't realize it. So I was like,
Yes, it really is a benefit for health. I mean,
yes,
it fosters health benefits for years, even after breastfeeding, for both mom and babies.
yes.
So I hear you. All right, so we are wrapping up. I do love our conversation. I have another question for you though.
Okay.
What is one word of advice that you can give Black mothers? What is a word of advice? Breastfeeding Black mothers.
Confidence.
Confidence?
Be confident in your breastfeeding journey.
Mhm.
You know, don't compare, even though it's hard, and I'm even in that comparing, but in that stage of I want to be an oversupplier and I'm not. One thing I've learned too as well, even with my first child, is thinking like, am I not producing enough milk for my baby? And realize, and you will learn when you latch, especially when your baby is latching, even when pumping, your body will make exactly what your child is needing. I used to think with my oldest child, like I'm not making enough. Like, meanwhile, because he was such mainly a latch baby, that when I would pump, I didn't realize that. I'm like, why am I only making this amount? Realizing this is all that he was really needing. And then
Right.
once he hit like 4 or 5 months or so, he started eating, regular food and still latching. It was like, this is all he really need. We don't need nothing more. So it's like, be confident, understanding, like, there are ways for you to be able to help increase it. You don't always have to take all the extra like medication, everything. They're legit. And I'm speaking on I'm learning this now because I want to be that's something I'm pushing to be an oversupplier. I want to be an oversupplier.
Why do you want to be an oversupplier?
I want to be so when I was in my engorged stage
Okay.
and I was pumping, I had to the point I had so many bags of milk, like I was starting to run out of room in the freezer, in the refrigerator freezer. And so, when I would leave, or if like his dad wanted him or grandma wanted him,
Oh, so
go
you
ahead.
want to supply.
Right, yeah. So they were
Yeah.
taking the bags. Then next one day, I don't know. It's just one day randomly, my milk, like my milk decreased and we ran out of bags of milk, and I just was like, what am I going to do?
Right.
Like, I don't know. And it decreased for like maybe a week. It went down to where I was pumping like, and at this time he was drinking at least 2 to 4 ounces, so it was still okay. And it just was like, so I
That part,
supplemented.
it was still okay.
It was still okay
You said you
because
made enough for him.
I made enough, and even
Okay.
though the 2 ounces, I was able because of the fact of me knowing what type of formula that was similar to when I pulled went my oldest child off. I was okay knowing like as long
You
as
may have
there
to
was
supplement.
two ounces at least, or even an ounce of breast milk, and I have to supplement the rest, he's still getting. And on top of that, that's when I also knew like, okay, I had to make a decision between the family. Like, listen, from here on out, like, I had to tell dad, grandma, and even on my side, I'm like, listen, from here on out, until I get enough bags, unless it's crucial, I said I'm gonna have to nurse him all the way down to the sea. So now, because I've communicated, I'm gonna add another word: communication. Always communicate and stand up for what it is for your breastfeeding journey, and let people know this is what it is. And some people, once they are properly educated, they're not and this is now what I've learned from my family in general. Because my twin sister did the breastfeeding and kind of educated the immediate family as to where we go, who we are with, and who we're around. We all know, like, even me when I'm there and I'm nursing and everything, everybody knows what it is. They pick up on it. They like, hey, you got bad. Like right now,
You set the expectation.
I have 3 bags of milk. 3 bags of milk right now at my grandparents' house that was supposed to have came. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna leave it there because I'm at my grandparents' house a lot. And if, they're having parties or an event, and if I forget to like bring milk or something, I know that it's there. I
Right,
also have a bag of milk at my mother's house too. So it's like once you're pumping and you're not at pump, freeze it.
yeah.
Put it and take it. If you know you're at certain people's houses and leave that milk there, especially when you're there a lot, leave it there. Because eventually you might need it, thinking like, oh, because sometimes I've learned this too. With breastfeeding, when you're sick, even though you might not get sick too often, but if you do get sick, your milk will drop. It may not drop tremendous, it shouldn't drop tremendous, but it will drop a little bit. So Fab brand formula that will work for you. Now, I'm going to suggest, because it got suggested to me for all breastfeeding moms, if you are to use a formula, use Simulac 360.
That works for you?
It worked for me, but reading it on the label, it tells you that it's similar to breast milk. So because I know that it works, and it worked for my oldest child, but it works for him with the supplementing feeding. Like if it is that I didn't get a pump out today, and it's like, okay, my breast ain't doing it for him. He don't seem still like he's full. I will make a bottle to supplement, so he'll still, get both of it to where it's like I'm not having like a major issue or feeling like, oh, he's not latching. What am I gonna do? No, he's still latching. It's just this is the other part because, I don't know, maybe my boobs didn't fulfill him. Because again, one thing you will find out, the poor ratio from a bottle and a poor ratio from your actual breast is completely different. Like with your breast, he can, and I learned this coming from my pediatrician. With your breast, he can slowly stop himself from.
He can regulate it.
He can regulate the milk pool from your breast. Supposedly, the milk pool from the bottle is just all coming. So unless you, as mom or dad or whoever have baby, know and understand, I have to be the one to regulate the pool. As long as it's dripping, he or she's going to just keep drinking. Yeah. So I've learned at the now speaking, being that he's getting ready to be 3 months, he's at 4, maybe 6 ounces, somewhere in there. But if he's a 4 ounce bottle, every 2 ounces, I pull it out from his mouth, I burp. If he's still seeming like he want more, I give him another 2 ounces. Typically, as of right now, 4 ounces is enough. He'll go to sleep. So clearly, I'm assuming my body is making a 4 ounces, if not more, because
what'd you say? He's asleep. He's comfortable.
He's sleeping comfortable.
You can't see him. He's off camera, but let me tell you, he is having a good nap right now. He's milk wasted.
Yes.
Now, I appreciate you taking the time to come into the office and record this wonderful episode. In the theme of nutrition, I really thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I know that you have so much more that you can share with our audience.
I do.
Yes, and I hope that in the future you can come back because we didn't even dive deep into pushing and
much more.
Absolutely, there is so much more. But what I really wanted to highlight is the importance of normalizing breastfeeding. And I wanted to do so by sharing your story as a Black mother who has successfully breastfed 2 boys.
2 boys.
Isn't that amazing?
2 boys.
It brings us joy to be able to highlight your story, but also remind mothers out there that help is available to reach these goals. And the Center for Urban Breastfeeding is here to assist. Our services are free for Black women who live in Allegheny County. Yes.
We love that.
We love
and no disrespect to the other communities and minorities, but
we have to be a resource for us and we have to normalize breastfeeding because it has so many benefits for our health and our baby's health. So if you are interested in breastfeeding or you have questions or need support, please give our Latch Line a call at 412-545-2022, and we are available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you again for joining this episode of Milk Minutes. Have a good day.